So the way that I like to look at the elements of social media that a brand can put into play is to group them into sort of three broad buckets, which there are overlaps too, but it kind of helps to clarify it, which is content, tools and applications, and dialogue or communities. And so within content, you've got video, text, images, all the various bits. Within tools and applications, they can be anything from an enterprise-wide application that's taken months to build and is extremely complex and robust and allows people to do all sorts of crazy things, all the way through to just a simple Excel spreadsheet, which is pre-populated with useful data and a couple of formulas. And then in terms of communities, there is the opportunity for brands to listen to what's being said in communities. They can get involved by responding to what's being said. They can play quite an active role in those communities, in leading conversations. And finally, sort of at the extreme, they can build their own communities if there's a need that hasn't been met by any of the hundreds of thousands of communities out there. So with all three of them, there is this sort of light kind of entry point level down to a much more sort of expensive, time-consuming, much more robust solution. Within content, I think the role of video, as it becomes easier to produce, as the consumer's expectations of what kinds of video are up there in terms of production qualities, the length of it, the ability to engage with it by doing video responses, I think it's becoming more and more important because it's the expectation is there from the consumer to see video, and the ability is there from the brand to produce it, and the platforms are there to share it and to have people do things around it, like rate it and comment on it. So it's becoming increasingly important. What I think is sort of interesting is the way that, because it looks a lot like TV, we kind of bring these sort of TV-like expectations to it as marketers, which is, how do I make money out of that? Is there a pre-roll I can put on? Is there a little annoying banner ad I can put at the bottom? Can I interrupt it halfway through with an advert? And I think video, because it is so connected in our minds to broadcast TV, and broadcast TV is dealing with some fairly important issues about its future and its viability. It's a really interesting harbinger of what's going on in content. What is the role of this content? How do we make money out of it? Or how do we use it to provide value back to the company? And so then within that, you've got all the different categories. Is it for entertainment? Is it for education? Is it for sort of corporate comms? What's the role of video?
Excellent. With so much sort of social media opportunities out there, how does one, decide?
That's a good question. How do you decide where to focus your attentions? I think one of the there are two surprises, I think, when a brand comes to social media. One pleasant and one unpleasant. The pleasant one is that a Twitter account is free. Blog software is by and large free. The templates for really nice reading, they're free. It's really cheap in terms of the technical infrastructure. So that's the nice surprise. But inside that lovely GUI center is a nasty surprise, which is that it's really time consuming, or it can be. And brands need to, anybody using social media needs to dedicate an amount of time to doing it, because the content by and large has to come from the brand, or it needs to be managed by the brand or aggregated by them. There is a job to be done to have this conversation. And I think it's important to think of it as a conversation, because that then wakes you up to the commitment you're making, which is that this is not about walking around a cocktail party and slapping everyone on the back and sort of high-fiving and scooting off to the bar for a martini. This is about sitting down and having a meaningful conversation with somebody who cares about what your who cares about what your company is doing and wants to know more about it, or wants to tell you about, more importantly, wants to tell you about what your company is doing wrong or right. And failing to plan to have that time investment in place and thinking about what are we going to say tomorrow, what are we going to say next week, is really, that'll be the undoing. So I think the first instance, it's working out, okay, if we're going to do this, what are we going to do? Who's going to do it? Where's the information going to come from? How do we keep this conversation going? Because the last thing we want to do is sort of get halfway through this really heartfelt, warm, tender conversation and then nick off to the bar for a martini, because it doesn't play very well.